Just here. Okay. So just allowing yourself to settle in, welcoming yourself to this moment. Eyes open or eyes closed. Whatever works for you. And just for a moment, bringing your attention to your feet, whether they're in contact with the ground or not, and just feeling through the feet. We're not looking for anything spectacular, maybe just the feet in contact with the ground. If you're wearing socks, maybe the socks, the shoes. Just allowing yourself to fully arrive to the moment. Now, after noticing your feet, maybe moving your attention to those other areas of contact of the body with the chair or the cushion, or if you're lying down, the mat. Noticing if there's warmth in these areas or coolness. Just allowing yourself to get fully settled here. Allowing the body to just safely sink into the supporting surface. Embraced by the earth. Becoming aware of how gravity kind of keeps you in place. And fully arriving to this moment. Perhaps setting the intention to be fully present during this hour and a half that we're together. Whenever you notice the mind wandering or telling a story, gently and compassionately just bringing your attention right back to your breathing or to the body. And if you're noticing any tension right now or any tightness that like you maybe let go, then just allowing it to kind of fade away, maybe breathing through it, but without forcing, without controlling. It's more like an invitation. Understanding that the body also experiences life. And so it kind of reacts to adversity the same way that the mind does, that the thoughts come in. So being fully aware of whatever is here right now. Maybe noticing the back of the body here. The front of the body. And bringing your attention to the abdomen, the belly area. Noticing if there's any tightness or tension here. And if there is, just seeing once again the invitation to see if it can be let go. But if not, then just allowing it to stay. It will change on its own. Everything changes on its own. Change is the only constant in life. But if it feels all right to you, maybe just releasing any tension or tightness here around the belly, around the abdomen. Allowing the abdomen to expand on the in-breath and contract on the out-breath. Following this wave of rising on the in-breath and falling on the out-breath. Perhaps you might notice that there's still a lot in the mind, thoughts or stories, planning. So whenever you notice that, just acknowledging it, the natural function of the mind, and then bringing your attention right to this area, the abdomen, and the breath moving here, in and out of the body. Following in the breath all the way from beginning to end. Noticing how long it is or how short, how deep or how shallow. If you notice a tendency to change this, just acknowledging that and allowing the body to breathe however it's breathing in this moment. And thoughts might come and thoughts might go. So just allowing them to pass and seeing if you can very gently just rest your attention on the breath. There's no need to change the breath. So however you're breathing is okay and it's perfect. And if you find staying with the breath a bit challenging right now, you can always bring your attention to your hands and the temperature or any other sensations or your feet. These are just objects of our attention, so we're just resting our attention here. And if you are with us, just coming back to your breathing. Settling right into the moment. And there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do right now but just being here. There's nothing that needs to be accomplished. However you're breathing is fine. However you're sitting is fine. Whatever it is that you brought here right now, it's okay and it's welcome. So whatever it is, just allowing it to kind of just go into the background without resisting it, without pushing it away, whether it's thoughts or emotions. And just coming back to the breath, being here with your breathing. Or maybe you feel the breath of the nostrils, maybe one nostril more than the other, or the back of the throat. You might feel it coming down the chest, the belly, as they expand and contract. Settling your attention, whatever it is that you feel the breath the most right now. And now checking in with the body, noticing if anything has changed, starting at the feet, bringing your attention to any sensations here. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything too spectacular. It could be just the feet in contact with the ground or the shoe, maybe warmth or coolness. And moving up to the legs, that might or might not be in contact with the surface that's holding you. And the hips, where we often store much tension, just checking in, seeing what's here. The pelvis, the glutes, the lower back. And once again, checking in with the abdomen. The muscle here, the organs that are always working for us here. And the upper trunk, the chest, the rib cage, protecting the organs here, the lungs, the heart. The upper back. And how about the shoulders? Maybe inviting the shoulders to drop. Bringing your breathing, bringing the breath to all these areas of the body. Breathing right through them. The palms of your hands. And moving up the arms and noticing how some areas of the body are felt more than others. Some areas you might not feel anything at all, and that's okay. And just noticing the absence of sensation. And then some areas you might feel quite bad, maybe heat, warm, maybe coolness, tingling, numbness. Maybe some of these areas are in contact with other parts of the body. Just noticing that. Moving up to the shoulders. And if at any moment you encounter a sensation that might be too overwhelming for now or too much for this moment, you can always go back to the breath and just join back whenever you're ready. But if you're with us, just checking in with the shoulders, the neck, the throat. How about your face, the area around the mouth or the eyes? Perhaps you can feel the breath coming in through the nose. We often don't realize how much tension we hold in this area around the face, the permanent frown, squinting of the eyes, the tension in the forehead. Some people say that our face is a constant reminder of our thoughts. It reflects tension and tightness, emotion. And moving to the sides of the head, the right side and the right ear, the left side and the left ear. And doing this with great care and compassion, great kindness. Moving up to the back of the head and the top of the head, the crown. And now taking in a deep breath, breathing in and long, long exhale. Noticing how the body feels after that long exhale, and maybe just allowing the breath to flow to every part of the body, bringing oxygen to every cell. Starting with the muscles, the fibers, the nerves. oxygenating the entire body in this way. Noticing the stories the mind tells. There's always story about everything. Stories might come as images, as a little movie clip. It's quite creative. Words. And these stories can be quite powerful sometimes. And often we believe them to be true. We consider them facts. Maybe just becoming aware of any stories right now. Noticing what happens when we're quiet like this. Now, in some of these stories, sometimes we're the hero, and in some of these stories, we're the victim. There's always a story about everything. And so this month, besides pausing, we have been exploring the role of perception. And it finally comes down to the views we hold about ourselves, the views of the world, and the way we interact with these views and the world. So meditation allows us to get more insight into our views, into our interpretations, perceptions. And so this is our formal practice. We sit here, we pay attention. When we pay attention, we get to have insight in all the stories and everything that happens behind the scenes, per se. The stories that the mind tells. I like to say that the mind is the perpetual storyteller. So great at it. But what's interesting is that not all the stories we tell ourselves are true. It's always good to know that. But the mind puts together stories based on everything. For instance, the moment maybe your boss calls you into the office, there's a story about that. A friend that says they'll call you right back and they don't, there's a story about that. Maybe the neighbor down the street that doesn't wave back when you wave, there's a story about that. Rarely do we think maybe they didn't see us or we're not in trouble. The mind just turns to go to the worst case scenario and we believe this to be true. But where are all these stories, where are they coming from? So, well, the interesting thing is that most of these stories we tell ourselves have seeds in our early childhood. So, our early experiences. And they might not manifest the exact same way, but if we kind of pay attention to them, we can see how they might come, just from past experience. So I shared with you in the past my experience with bugs and the story in my mind that all bugs were dangerous when I was little just because of one incident, right? So my mind created an entire story about them and about every single little type of bug. And so eventually I developed this phobia based on this story, right? And the same thing happened with me and cats, as rare as that might sound. But again, one episode created an entire story. And it wasn't until I was able to see the stories that I realized that it all just started with one little incident and the mind creating the stories. Now, there's a good thing about it, right? I mean, the story is a very helpful also part of the mind, telling stories. So we're more focused on when the stories don't work in our favor. The stories we tell ourselves, about who we are, about who others are in relation to us. So see, for a long time before I started meditating, I didn't even know why I was so terrified of bugs or cats. But this awareness that emerges from our formal practice allows us to put things together and hopefully be able to reframe the beliefs. We have a belief system that's kind of reinforced by these stories and is created to kind of keep us safe, to get us out of trouble. But eventually, these stories are not helpful anymore. Sometimes they work against us. So, the way to understand them is that they are often limited. They're limited because they were created earlier on in life, the child's perception of life. So, I think one story that is worth exploring is that most of us are not even aware of it, but it's the story that sometimes we might be unlovable, right? Whether we run into circumstances at work or people. And it makes us question this love, right? And this shows up in many ways. For instance, it could be the way we treat our bodies, the foods we eat, how much we exercise, how much we care for our own body in this way. How about the things we say to ourselves, right? We look at ourselves in the mirror. And the way maybe we overlook our emotions could be a good one too, right? I shouldn't be sad. I should be happy. I shouldn't be fearful. I should be brave, right? The shoulds. Putting judgment on how we feel, not acknowledging that that's something that needs care for, right? So this all goes to self-love. So maybe we live with an idea of being terrified that we might be left, try to control every situation. And then when we look deep inside, then we might realize that that's just because there's a belief in there. Whether the belief is that people leave us, or the belief might be that nobody's ever going to stick around, that we might not be worth it. So again, this all goes to perception, what we've been talking about this entire month. And as we pause, we have a chance to really explore these views about ourselves, about the world. So the idea of loving ourselves could be daunting at times. But what is fun is that most of the time we don't even realize how little love we might have towards ourselves. So it's very important to become aware of these limiting stories that we tell about ourselves. And so every time we're meditating, we're getting greater insight, formal practice every time we sit together here. But then also informally as we interact with others, right? We tend to project how we feel. We tend to project who we are onto others. You know, if we're suspicious, we think everybody's suspicious. You know, so we project our own life, our own beliefs, which are often not true. So maybe just bringing even a little bit of sense of humor about all the things that come up and all the crazy stories could be really helpful, right? And sometimes I find myself saying things and I just laugh. It's like, what? Where did that come from? So bringing a little bit of sense of humor to these stories can be helpful, just noticing them. And then if you want to dig in a little deeper, you can, right? Just noticing, where does this come from? Just kind curiosity, compassion. So Sharon Salzberg in her book, Real Love, says, the tales we tell ourselves are the central themes of our psyches. She says, if we're the child of an alcoholic parent, we might conclude unconsciously that it is our job to take care of absolutely everyone, even to our own detriment. And I think in our case, that's, our experience maybe with an alcoholic parent, but for us, it could be anything, an overbearing parent, a self-centered parent, when their needs are first before ours. All these things can really create habits of the mind, right? And go through life just acting them out. So important to kind of see, what's the seed of this belief? So furthermore, she writes, until we begin to question our basic assumptions about ourselves and view them as fluid, that means that they move around, they're not fixed. So she says, as we view them as fluid and not fixed, it is easy to repeat established patterns out of habit and reenact old stories that limit our ability to live and love ourselves with an open heart. So understanding that these stories are not fixed, that we're not stuck with them, that every time we notice a story, we're already opening up to insight. We can already reframe that. Like I said, maybe bring in a little sense of humor. Maybe if you are curious, maybe bring in kind curiosity, like, where is this coming from? This is a story I just told about myself, right? And another really important thing to keep in mind is the stories we come up with about others, because they point right at ourselves. They have very little to do with others. They're mostly about ourselves, right? If we don't trust people, we're going to think that they're not trusting us, right? So these are all these things that we can keep in mind. So maybe something to just keep in mind and to ponder on will be to invite you to explore what are some limiting stories that you might tell about yourself that are holding you back. So as we sit together, maybe just tuning into the stories that might be fresh here in your mind, and they don't have to be anything outrageously crazy. It could be just a small story. I was just telling my story with cats. And so maybe just tuning into that this week and this weekend and this week, and just kind of becoming aware of this inner dialogue, of this inner storytelling, seeing where they come from, seeing what they're about, getting to know yourself a little better, noticing when there's a story about someone else. Like I said, most likely those stories are about us too. So the power of perception, how we perceive the world, how we perceive others. So just sitting here for a couple of moments in deep gratitude for yourself, to be giving yourself this time to come in together, to sit with one another, but most importantly with yourself. So allowing a sense of gratitude to just be here as we finish our formal practice and move on into our informal practice.